So to start off this interview, I wanted to ask, what is your name and how long have you been here in San Diego?
My name is Sean Elo-Rivera, and I moved to San Diego in 2011.
So I was wondering another background question, like what was your upbringing like?
Um, my upbringing was so there's a lot to that answer. I would say it was up and down, and wide ranging in terms of experiences. My family moved quite a bit. Um, we had kind of an up and down financial experience. I come from a multi-ethnic and multi-religious family. Um, so I was able to see a lot of different perspectives and experience life in a variety of ways. However, I did have a very constant supply of love and support from my parents.
Yeah. So I was wondering like why did you decide to do something related to politics? Was it like experience or like your parents or something? Like why did you do it?
Yeah. I had an interest in politics when I was really young and had um, always maintained that. Didn't necessarily think that I would work in it, but was definitely interested in it. And after high school, I spent a number of years as a high school athletics coach in Orange County, and thought that I would end up teaching at some point. I loved that. I really, really enjoyed coaching. And however, at some point in my mid 20s, I just started kind of thinking about what more there might be in terms of possibilities. And then in 2008, the Obama presidential campaign just really kind of lit a spark in me as someone who has a multi-religious and multi-ethnic background. I think I saw someone who um, whose diversity and the support that he was able to to garner, it kind of made me believe in more possibilities for myself. And I didn't know that I would end up running for office, but that catapulted me into looking for opportunities to have a broader impact. Um, Ultimately, my decision to run for office came from the work that I was doing in community organizing and advocacy, and seeing some of the seeing a possibility to create broader impact through elected office.
Thank you so much for that answer. So, like honing in on the upcoming 2024 election, I was wondering like what makes you a standout candidate? Like why should people vote for you?
Yeah. Well, for the position that I'm running for, re-election to city council, uh, representing District 9, um, I think in my time in office as a council member, I've demonstrated an ability to get things done, to be an effective legislator. Ultimately, as a city council member, the city council has two primary responsibilities. That's to oversee policy and the budget. And I think in both of those arenas, I've demonstrated an ability to effectively move policy and to influence the budget in a way that's beneficial to District 9, to secure important funding for roads and streetlights, for staffing, to get that work done, to have major investments in infrastructure like parks, to do that in a way that's equitable, that recognizes the needs of communities that have been underserved for a long time. And then in terms of policy, I've voted in a manner very consistent with the way that I said I would vote in terms of what I would prioritize. I've earned the support of my colleagues in such a way that's allowed me to be council president the last 2 years. And then additionally, in my roles outside of city council, but as a representative of the city of San Diego, whether that be at MTS or SANDAG or the Air Pollution Control District, have also ensured that San Diego and District 9's best interests are represented in terms of the transportation and mobility options that are being offered in our community. We successfully got free transit passes for youth under 18, which is something that we campaigned for, expanded that program to include foster youth 24 and under, have really secured quite a bit of funding for a number of mobility options here. So I think I have a proven track record of being pretty good at this job, of understanding what the job is, and being able to execute well in this role.
Yeah, thank you so much for that answer. It's really good to see that, you've done so much already in like your job as like a city council. So looking at San Diego, like how are you gonna tackle like the housing crisis and like the affordable housing problem?
Yeah. Well, was our top priority coming into office was housing and homelessness. They go hand in hand. And we are going to continue to push for the creation of more housing across the board, especially housing that's affordable to folks who are making middle income or less. We have a supply issue in San Diego. It's a fact. Some people don't like to recognize that. They think that there's plenty of homes or that we should just stop letting people move here. That's not consistent with reality. We need to build more housing, and we've been really supportive of doing that, and we'll continue to be supportive of that, not just in concept, but in terms of, again, what we prioritize from a policy perspective and a budgetary perspective. We've also been championing securing funding from the state and federal government to help with that. And then lastly, we champion some really important strengthening of tenant protections, which we know plays a huge impact on the ability of San Diegans to stay here in San Diego and to avoid homelessness. The last thing on that front, David, that I'll say is we've really leaned into the prevention side of homelessness and displacement. We've, I think, been the primary champions of prevention. We know that when we look at the data, seniors are the group who are becoming homeless at the fastest rate in San Diego. The population of seniors who are experiencing homelessness is growing faster than any other group. And that we know that for most people who become homeless, anywhere from a few $100s to a couple $1,000s would be the difference between them becoming homeless and staying in their homes. And so our office championed the creation of what we call a housing instability prevention fund. We've put millions of dollars into that program, which provides small subsidies to seniors, families with children, and people with disabilities to ensure that they don't unnecessarily become homeless. So we tackle this from a variety of perspectives, from preserving the housing that we currently have, especially the housing that's affordable, to protecting tenants, to preventing homelessness through these subsidy programs, and then championing the creation of more housing, again, at all income levels, but especially for middle income and lower income individuals.
Yeah, that perfectly leads into my next question about like homelessness. Besides like, housing, like what are you going to do like to, better lower the amount of like homeless people on the streets of San Diego?
Well, so I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, because you said something that makes that pretty specific at the end. You said the number of homeless people on the streets of San Diego. And so one of the questions that I ask people who raise this issue with me is, do you want to reduce homelessness, or do you want to reduce homelessness that you see? Because that's an important question that we have to ask ourselves. We can, theoretically, we could get every person who's experiencing homelessness on our streets and in our canyons and in our parks off the streets and in the shelters, and not actually have reduced homelessness at all. And I don't want San Diego to simply strive to become the place with the highest per capita shelter population in the United States. I think we're better than that. I think we should strive to be the big city with the lowest number of people who are experiencing homelessness, the lowest rates of homelessness. And in order to do that, we have to have more housing. We have to create more permanent supportive housing. We need to create more housing that is affordable. We need to utilize models that were used in the past that have gone by the wayside, like small studios and studio situations with shared kitchens. These are models that people with low incomes, especially seniors, used to be able to afford and have all been eliminated from San Diego's housing landscape. And then obviously we need to provide support services to people who are experiencing homelessness and have some sort of mental illness and or problems with substance abuse. But again, we need to do that, but we also need to just be honest with ourselves that we could completely solve mental illness as a challenge. We could solve substance abuse, and in San Diego's housing market, we would still have thousands of people experiencing homelessness. We know that homelessness is a housing problem. That when we look at the data, again, this is all data driven, and we compare rates of mental illness or substance abuse, what distinguishes the cities that have the highest homelessness population is not the amount of mental illness or addiction that exists in those communities, but the cost of housing. And until we create enough housing where housing is affordable to people, we will continue to have homelessness in San Diego, which is why all the things that I said in the answer immediately prior to this question is so important for us to do.
Yeah. So I was wondering, like, what are your goals you're going to strive for, like, once you get elected?
If I'm reelected?
Yeah.
Yeah. The number one goal is to make meaningful progress in homelessness. I have other goals as well, which I'll talk about in a second, but so that is a humanitarian crisis. And I think if I were to give you any other answer, David, it would be very irresponsible of me to say anything else so long as that problem exists in the crisis form that it currently exists. So homelessness is number one, and to make meaningful progress in terms of reducing homelessness and preventing homelessness. The second is to just generally reduce the cost of housing in San Diego, especially again for middle income and lower income families. The second is to meaningfully address our global climate crisis, but at the local level, to improve air quality and cleanliness in our neighborhoods, to address the environmental injustice issues that really, really are a problem in many of the communities in my district. The third is to improve safety and justice in our community in a way that recognizes the unique needs of different communities and individuals in order to feel safe, and ensure that there's accountability and justice for everyone, but especially those of us who have the most power. And then the fourth is around economic opportunity and ensure that the city of San Diego is doing everything that we can to promote and produce quality jobs and economic opportunity, especially for our young people.
Yeah. So, like, how are the citizens of San Diego, how are they going to continue to be confident, like, trust you in accomplishing, like, the goals you just told me?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? And I think, and that question about trust is a really important one right now, because we live in a highly polarized political time where trust is really hard to come by. The trust of our institutions is being eroded. Some of that through, for good reason, and in other ways because of, I think, the very irresponsible behavior of some folks who have and have been in elected office. And so earning trust is hard to do. For me, a lot of that involves us trying to be extremely honest and transparent with our constituents, even when we're talking about things that we don't agree on. I oftentimes have conversations with constituents who disagree on an issue or two and want me to say the thing that they want me to say, right? They want to hear me say that I agree with them. And I don't think that's actually a way to earn trust. I think that that's a way to erode trust, because if I know that I can't actually follow through on a promise that they're asking me to make, or they're asking me to agree with a position that is not in alignment with my values or what I believe to be the best path forward, sure, I might make them happy in the moment, but over time, they're going to lose faith in me and lose faith in government, and that's not what I want to do. So to me, it all starts with being honest and transparent and candid, and going out and trying to have as many face-to-face conversations with people as possible. That's been a really challenging thing over the last few years. I entered office during the peak of the pandemic, and there were many constituents who I didn't get to meet in person for over a year. And it's really hard, as you know, right? You probably started high school during that time, and it's hard to build relationships and build the same sort of friendships and trust with someone through Zoom, right? Than it is when you're in person and you get to sit with someone and look right in their eyes and really get a sense for who they are. And so we're trying to make up for lost time on that front, but it's not easy.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what you just had to say. So yeah, that was my last question. Do you have anything else you want to tell me?
No, tell me a little bit more, David, about what you're working on here.
Yeah, so this is part of, yeah, like she said, my mentor is Lily, and this is like the Love of Journalism program project. And I'm basically, me and other people are trying to interview as many people as we can for like the upcoming 2024 elections, try to help them like get votes. So yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to do, trying to interview as many people as I can this summer and next summer to help them, like get their face into like the public. So
Yeah. And are you interested in journalism later on?
uh, I don't know, maybe. So
Maybe.
it's a possibility.
Okay. What else are you interested in?
Political science.
Okay. So are you interested in running for office yourself one day?
Um, I think probably maybe. Yeah, I think it's a possibility. So
Okay. All right. Well, David, I appreciate what you're doing here. And, if you have additional questions, you know how to get a hold of us, right?
yeah.
And so don't hesitate to reach out. My work prior to, you might have seen this in your research, but my work prior to being elected to city council was working with young people, mostly 16 to 24 years old, who wanted to advocate, who were advocating for other youth and for themselves. And so I always try to support young folks who are getting involved in advocacy and politics. That's a passion of mine, and so don't hesitate to reach out. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Council Member Sean.
Yeah. Thank you, David, and thanks, Lily.